All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me first start by introducing myself. I am Judge Ada Clark Edwards. I am a judge here in Prince George's County, sit in District 5 in District Court. I am also the chair of our Domestic Violence Coordinating Council. Along with me as co-chair is Judge Dolores Dorsenville, who is also present, as well as a number of partners and collaborators to put on today's event. So let me first, thank you all for attending today. I hope that we're able to provide you with some useful information that you can either use on your own or certainly take back into the community to share with the community. Let me also thank each and every one of our presenters who have taken the time out to compile their resources and to be made available to present to you today. Let me first give you a little bit of information about the Domestic Violence Coordinating Council, which is the organization, the group, the committee that is putting together today's event. The Domestic Violence Coordinating Council is a collaboration of a number of agencies and organizations within Prince George's County. Some are governmental agencies, some are nonprofit, non-governmental agencies, but all seeking to serve victims of domestic violence and their families. The purpose for all of us coming together is really to find ways to improve our systems and processes, rather really to create systemic change in the area of domestic violence. We're really trying to collaborate in ways that we haven't done before in order to improve accessibility to survivors of domestic violence, in order to reduce barriers to victims obtaining those services, and to find new ways to provide and new resources and how to reach victims in providing those resources within our community. And so that's really why the Domestic Violence Coordinating Council works. You'll be able to hear from many of our partners and providers today, some of whom were not able to be here today, but we will certainly be able to provide you with that information because again, it's an expansive list of, this really is a strong working group of individuals and agencies all seeking to improve services. The purpose of today's open house is really for you because so much has changed in the way we serve victims and the way we make ourselves available and how we reach victims and their families. And certainly with what's happened just in the past year, how people access services, we wanted to put this on today, again, collaboratively, to give you some information from each of the organizations presenting today and agencies presenting today about the resources that are being provided and how you can access those services. Some you'll hear, there have been some changes, there have been some pivots due to the pandemic that's occurred. Some things have changed, some things have certainly improved, some ways we've had to move remote, but still providing services. And some things, again, we've not changed at all. And so we wanted to make sure that we continue to communicate with the public about those resources that are available. Now, just a little bit of housekeeping. We have enabled the Q&A, question and answer, for today's event. And so I just want you to be assured that the presenters, if you have a specific question for a presenter today, that you will be able to ask questions throughout our open house and present at our open house today. And as we go through the program, they will try their best to answer those questions. If they are not able to answer those questions, we will try, time permitting, to get to those at the end of the event. All right, just for a few more housekeeping tips, I'm going to turn it over to, again, co-chair Judge Dolores Dorsenville.
Good afternoon and welcome to you all. We're very happy to have you join us for this very important, informative event. We recognize that this event may serve as a trigger since the topic is of a personal and sensitive and somewhat traumatic nature. So if at any time during this presentation, you need to take a break away from this and walk away, we certainly encourage you to do so. This recording will be made available online should you wish to come back to it at a later time. We want to make sure that everyone here is taking care of their mental health. So we're very fortunate today that one of our partners, the Community Crisis Services Incorporated, has provided us with a phone number to share with you all should you need to talk to someone during the live portion of this program. If so, please call 301-322-8778. I'll repeat that again, 301-322-8778 if you need to speak with a live counselor. I will now turn it back over to Judge Ada Clark Edwards, who will introduce our first speaker. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judge Dorsonville. And again, I do hope that you utilize that number, certainly if you feel the need to do so. That's why we make that service available. So we've broken this up. We've broken the program up today. We divided it by providers, or disciplines rather. And so how we'll move through the program today, the first discipline that we'll be covering are courts and law enforcement. The second group we'll be hearing from is our healthcare providers, just to give you kind of a roadmap of where we're going. Our healthcare providers. The next group that we'll hear from are legal assistance providers. Then we'll hear from our victim service providers, which for today's purposes is our largest group of providers today that provide direct resources, direct services to victims. And then we'll be hearing from our faith-based community. And a representative from First Baptist Church of Glenarden. And so, that's giving you just a roadmap of where we'll be going this afternoon. First, we'll start with the courts. So again, Judge Dorsonville and I both sit in District 5, Prince George's County, Maryland, in District Court. And so I wanted to give an update or just some information in terms of what has been going on with the courts and what you can expect if you need to seek a protective order, a peace order, or an extreme risk protective order in the courts. Our courts, as of right now, are open and fully operational. There are some limited exceptions to that, but nothing as it pertains to domestic violence or peace orders. Our courts are open and available to service you if you need to get need to file. Now, we have courthouses both in Upper Marlboro and in Hyattsville. Both of those courtrooms remain open. Our commissioners have never closed, and they remain open for filings after hours. You can continue to seek protective orders, peace orders, and extreme risk protective orders when the courts are closed through our commissioner's office. If the courts are open during business hours, you're certainly free to come to Upper Marlboro to file, or you can go to Hyattsville to file. We have two courtrooms that are operating in both locations, both in Upper Marlboro and in Hyattsville. And in Upper Marlboro, our courtroom is 164, and we have a remote courtroom, primarily remote, strictly remote courtroom, which is 353 in Upper Marlboro. And then we have Hyattsville 1, which is our main domestic violence courtroom, and Hyattsville Courtroom 5, which operates as our remote courtroom. Now, if you go to the commissioner's office after hours and you are granted an interim protective order, then you will be given a date, usually within the next 24 to 48 hours, to return to the courts for a temporary protective order hearing. That temporary protective order hearing, as of right now, is going to be remote. So when you get that information from the commissioner's office, you also get a Zoom link, because that's the platform that we're using. You'll get a Zoom link to log on for those interim orders. And again, that's the same for whether or not you file at the commissioner's office in Upper Marlboro or Hyattsville. If you file after hours and you're granted an interim order, you will appear via Zoom for a temporary protective order. If you are granted a temporary protective order through the courts, then you will be given a Zoom link to appear for your final protective order. So again, both your temporary hearings and if you've gone to the commissioner's office and if you've been granted a temporary order, even if you walked in and were granted a temporary order, your final protective order hearing for now will be via Zoom. The only matters that we are scheduling in person or hearing in person for right now are those that walk into the courthouse and file in the clerk's office, and they will be directed right to the courtroom to be heard for a temporary order at that time. Now, we expect this will remain the same, at least through the remainder through this month and likely through July. When that changes, please be assured that we will communicate that to the public, and certainly for parties that have active cases, you will be given notice in time so that you are, if it changes from that Zoom, even if you've been notified that you have a Zoom hearing, if for some reason that changes and we move back to in-person for some or all hearings, you will be notified at the address that we have for you that has been moved to an in-person hearing. And again, that is the same for our domestic violence protective orders, for our peace orders, and for our extreme risk protective orders. To discuss a little bit more about exactly how you file and where you go to file and more information about that, I'm going to turn it over to Captain Richards with our Prince George's County Sheriff's Department, who is able to give you some further information about that. Captain Richards? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Judge Clark Edwards. Good afternoon. I'm Captain Sean Richards with the Prince George's County Office of the Sheriff Domestic Violence Intervention Division. I want to thank everyone for being here today for this great event. I will be here along with Ms. Bethany Bordeaux with the Prince George's County Office of the Sheriff Special Victims Assistance Unit and Lieutenant Manzar Ahmed with the Prince George's County Police Department Domestic Violence Unit to answer any questions following our video.
Thank you, Captain Richards.
Hello, I'm Captain Sean Richards with the Prince George's County Office of the Sheriff, assigned to the Domestic Violence Intervention Division. Today, members of the Prince George's County Sheriff's Office and Prince George's County Police Department will be discussing domestic violence, to include protective orders, peace orders, extreme risk protective orders, filing for court orders, and the Office of the Sheriff Special Victims Assistance Unit. Domestic violence is violent or aggressive behavior within the home, typically involving the violent abuse of a spouse or partner. A pattern of abuse behavior in any relationship that is used by one partner to maintain or gain control over another intimate partner. Many types of abuse are included in the definition of domestic violence, to include physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, economic abuse, psychological abuse, threats, stalking, and cyberstalking. Protective and peace orders are civil orders that order a person to refrain from committing certain acts against another. Protective orders generally apply to people involved in a sexual relationship within the last 12 months, with children in common, related by blood, marriage, or adoption, any victim of sexual assault, a vulnerable adult, or cohabitant. Peace orders apply to all others, neighbors, co-workers, acquaintances, and strangers. We have three types of protective orders. The first is an interim protective order. This is issued by a commissioner. It is effective until the temporary hearing, which is heard by a judge, but not beyond the second business day after issuance. The temporary protective order is issued by a judge. It shall be effective for 7 days and may be extended up to 6 months to effect service or for good cause. Final protective orders are issued by a judge. The order is effective for 1 year and can be extended for an additional year for a total of 2 years. You shall surrender and cannot possess a firearm during the duration of this order.
Hello, I'm Captain Michael Major, and I'm also assigned to the Prince George's County Office of the Sheriff Domestic Violence Intervention Division. I will be talking to you about peace orders and extreme risk protective orders, also known as ERPOs. Peace orders. There are three types of peace orders, the first being an interim peace order. The interim peace order is issued by a commissioner. It is in effect until a temporary hearing. That hearing will be held by a judge, but not beyond the second business day after issuance. The second type is a temporary peace order. That order is issued by a judge. The order also shall be in effect for 7 days and may be extended up to 30 days to effect service or for good cause. The final peace order is issued by a judge. The order is in effect for 6 months and can be extended for an additional 6 months. Extreme risk protective orders, also known as ERPOs. An extreme risk protective order is meant to prohibit an individual from possessing or purchasing a firearm when there is sufficient information to believe that that individual poses an immediate and present danger of causing personal injury to an individual or others by possessing a firearm. The purpose of the ERPO is to reduce the gun death deaths, and injuries by restricting an individual from access to a firearm and ammunition. Extreme risk protective orders, there are also 3 types. The first type is an interim ERPO. It's issued by a commissioner. It is in effect until the temporary hearing is held by a judge, but not beyond the 2nd business day after issuance. The second type is a temporary ERPO. It's issued by a judge. That order shall be in effect for 7 days and may be extended up to 6 months to effect service or for good cause. The last type is a final extreme risk protective order. It's issued by a judge. The order is in effect for 1 year and can be extended for an additional 6 months. And also the respondent shall surrender all firearms and cannot possess a firearm during the duration of this order.
Hello, I'm Lieutenant Ahmed of the Prince George's County Police Department, currently assigned as an on-site partner to the Family Justice Center. At this time, I'll be discussing where a person can obtain for a protective, peace, and extreme risk protective order. Each of these orders can be obtained 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. During weekdays, Monday through Friday, between the hours of 8:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m., a person can respond to the Hyattsville Courthouse, located at 4990 Rhode Island Avenue, room 200A in Hyattsville, Maryland. Or a person can respond to the Upper Marlboro Courthouse, located at 14735 Main Street, room 168B in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. During evenings, weekends, and holidays, a person may respond to the Commissioner's Office, located either at the Prince George's County Department of Corrections at 13400 Dilly Drive, Upper Marlboro, Maryland, or the Hyattsville Regional Booking Facility, located at 4990 Rhode Island Avenue in Hyattsville, Maryland. The steps of filing for any of these orders are as follows. Step 1, complete the correct form. Protective order. They apply to intimate or blood relationships. Peace orders applies to relationships other than intimate or blood relationships. For extreme risk protective orders, they're for immediate and present danger from gun violence. Note, the petitioner is the person applying for the order seeking protection. The respondent is the alleged abuser. Step 2, file the petition during the times and locations previously shown. Step 3, appear for temporary hearing before the judge to explain your situation. The order grants short-term relief for approximately 7 days. Step 4, appear for the final hearing. Protective orders. A judge may grant relief for up to 12 months, which may be extended another 12 months upon showing good cause. Peace orders. A judge may grant relief for up to 6 months, which may be extended another 6 months upon showing good cause. Extreme risk protective orders. A judge may grant relief for up to 1 year, which may be extended another 6 months upon showing good cause. Domestic standbys. Any person who alleges to have been a victim of abuse and who believes there is a danger of serious and immediate personal harm may request the help of a local law enforcement unit. A local law enforcement officer who responds to the request for help shall protect the person from harm when responding to the request and accompany the person to the family home so that the person may remove the following items regardless of who paid for the items: the personal clothing of the person and any child in the care of the person, and the personal effects, including medicine or medical devices of the person and of any child in the care of the person that the person or child needs immediately. This can be found under Maryland Code Family Law 4-502. The Sheriff's Office number for court-ordered standbys is 301-780-8408. For any questions pertaining to domestic violence investigations, an individual may contact the Domestic Violence Unit at 301-772-4433. The unit can also be emailed at police_domestic-violence@co.pg.md.us. The Domestic Violence Unit is located within the Criminal Investigation Division at 7600 Barlow Road, Landover, Maryland.
Hello, I'm Bethany Bordeaux with the Prince George's County Sheriff's Office Domestic Violence Special Victim Assistance Unit. At our office, we provide information and assistance to victims of domestic violence and offer them services that include information referrals for shelter, counseling, legal services, bilingual assistance, crisis intervention, safety planning, court accompaniment to hearings. We provide assistance in applying for civil protective orders, and we also provide information about court hearings and updates for the court cases. We can be reached at 4 locations: at the Family Justice Center, at the Hyattsville Courthouse, the Upper Marlboro Courthouse, and our Sheriff's Office headquarters in Upper Marlboro. For direct contact, you can reach me at 301-780-8426 or by email at bmbordeaux@co.pg.md.us.
Thank you so much to all of our law enforcement partners for that presentation. And now to continue, we will hear from our State's Attorney's Office, and presenting on behalf of our State's Attorney's Office for Prince George's County is Melissa Hopmeyer, who is the Chief of the Special Victims and Family Violence Unit. Melissa.
Thank you, Judge, and good afternoon, everybody. And I did see that in the question, there was a question about housing, and I am going to touch on how my office can assist with that if there are victims that have criminal cases. And I'm sure that some of our other partners are going to touch on housing in terms of how they can help. As Judge Clark Edwards said, I'm Melissa Hopmeyer. I'm the Chief of the Special Victims and Family Violence Unit, the State's Attorney's Office. And I just wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about the types of cases that my unit specifically handles. And so we handle misdemeanor and felony cases, as well as juvenile sex crimes. And we handle cases involving intimate partner violence. And so that would be, boyfriend, girlfriend, ex-boyfriend and girlfriend, married couples, and anybody who is in a intimate partner relationship or had a romantic relationship. We also handle all sexual assault cases, child physical and sexual abuse cases, child exploitation, and human trafficking. Our unit is made up of myself, 2 assistant chiefs, 8 felony line attorneys, a hybrid attorney who handles low-level felonies, as well as juvenile sex cases, and 4 district court attorneys, as well as 3 paralegals. And so here is just some important contact information. Our office, although the courts are open and we are in court daily, we are operating on a semi-in-person schedule. And so we have a rotating basis in my unit specifically of people going in the office in order to keep up with social distancing requirements. So there is always somebody in the office, at least one supervisor is always there as well. But we're not all in on the same day. But if you need assistance, you can always reach out to our victim witness coordinators. They're available, and I have that number up there for you. And as I indicated, we do have emergency housing program in the domestic violence unit. And if you need assistance either with temporary housing or long-term housing as a result of the criminal case that you have, we have coordinators who can assist with that. And they can be reached at the number that you see there. And so, typically what we provide is we provide a down payment or any deposit that's necessary, and then up to 3 months rent, depending on the need and the ability that we have with the grant that we have from the Department of Justice. And so if you just contact that emergency housing unit, or if you have a specific prosecutor that's assigned to your case, you can just reach out and we can connect you and assist you with that way. I know that we're working on getting additional funding because housing is such a big issue, not only in the county, but nationwide in terms of domestic violence. There's also an email address that you can reach our victim witness coordinators, 24/7. If you send an email there, they can connect you with a prosecutor if you need them, or connect you to the right service provider outside of our office if that's appropriate. I also just want to take the time to provide a brief legislative update about some changes in the law that's happened both in 2020 and then in 2021. And so I know that with COVID, a lot of people haven't been kind of paying attention because we've had to deal with this public health crisis. And so I just want to point out that as of October 1 of 2020, the Strangulation Law went into effect. And what that means is that strangulation is now enumerated as a felony, as a first-degree assault. And so if there is an allegation that someone was strangled or choked, that case is now being handled as a felony throughout the state of Maryland, not only in Prince George's County. And then we've also developed a strangulation protocol with a lot of the partners here on this call to ensure that those cases are handled appropriately. Another big change last year that went into effect October 1 of 2020 is that prior to October 1 of 2020, sexual assault victims who may not have had a prior relationship with their abuser were not able to file for protective orders. And as you saw in the last presentation, protective orders can last a year and then can be extended up to 2 years, and peace orders are only 6 months. And obviously victims of sexual assault the legislature saw fit that they needed additional protections. And so now, even if you don't know your abuser, even if it was a stranger sexual assault or one that happened on a first date, you can apply for a protective order. You can get that protective order for up to a year, and then obviously up to 2 years. And then you would also qualify for the lifetime protective order in the event that the defendant or the person that was subject to the protective order is convicted and sentenced to at least 5 years of active incarceration. And so those were just two important laws that changed in 2020. And we had a good 2021 year as well, even though we had a virtual session. And so I just wanted to talk about some of those changes as well. There was a expansion of the prohibition on sexual activity by law enforcement officers. Before the statute talked about only individuals who were in law enforcement's custodies. That has expanded to any witness or anybody that the police are investigating. And so if the police are part of an investigation, no matter what the investigation is or what their involvement in the investigation is, they cannot have a sexual relationship with any of the parties involved. That is witnesses, defendants, and victims. And so that was an extension of the law. There was also a change in the sexting law. Many of you may be familiar with a case in Charles County where a juvenile was charged with the manufacturing of child pornography because she sent an image of herself to a boyfriend. We went to the legislature and asked them to carve out an exception for that. We don't want to make our juveniles sex offenders if they are not engaged in the behavior that we are trying to protect against, which is the exploitation of children. And so we did pass that law. And so now juveniles, unless they're doing it for explicit purposes of the exploitation of another person, cannot be charged under the sexting law. And then finally, a really important bill that passed is we passed a continuing course for child abuse prior to now will be in effect in October, but child torture was not outlawed in Maryland. And so we went to the legislature, and now if an individual has committed 3 or more offenses of second-degree child abuse, they can be charged with continuing course child abuse, which is a first-degree felony and a crime of violence. We had a lot of cases that involved child torture where we were not able to prove the first-degree child abuse because not a single injury amounted to serious physical injury. But obviously the child was diagnosed medically as being tortured. And so now this bill will allow us to charge those cases. And then there's a few changes in the civil law. The workplace peace order now allows for a employer to file for a peace order if somebody is harassing an employee there. It's really important in cases where domestic violence victim may not feel ready or want to seek a protective order for themselves, but the harassment is ongoing in the workplace. The workplace can now seek it on behalf of the workplace in order to protect their employees. And then there was also a change in the name changes. So there is a prohibition. So if a victim of sexual assault or domestic violence or human trafficking wants to change their name, prior to that, all of their names were being published. If they make a specific request and they meet the statute, they can miss the publishing requirement so that their abusers can't find them. And then finally, there was an increase in the reporting requirements for sexual abuse and harassment at mental health facilities. So now there is a 24-hour reporting requirement for those facilities if there is an allegation that's made of sexual abuse or harassment in the facility. And I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has, either about any legislative changes or any questions people have about my office.
Melissa, thank you so much. As you can see, it's every year we are trying to progress. We're trying to pass new legislation. By we, I mean Maryland. Is trying to pass legislation that addresses some of the gaps we have in our current statutes addresses some of the issues we have just in how we provide services and how we reach victims. And so we've had some great successes over 2020 and 2021. And largely in part to many of the partners we have here and their work down in Annapolis, pushing to get our strangulation bill passed, pushing to get sexual assault now included as a protective order. And so I know when you heard from Captain Richards, and when they went over, and again, this has been in the works, this program has been in the works for over a year. So things have changed just in started developing this program to today. There's been a great deal of change. So now included in those people, the people who can get relief for protective orders, now those who have experienced some sexual assault within 6 months prior to filing, they're now able to get a protective order instead of a peace order, which again is a huge success in addition to our strangulation bill and the other bills passing as well. So again, thank you all. Thank you, Melissa, for presenting, and certainly thank all of our partners who have been integral in getting that legislation passed. Next, we're going to move to our healthcare partner. And today we have presenting from our Prince George's County Domestic Violence, Sexual Assault and Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Center, Carolyn Mulligan. Carolyn? Is Carolyn on mute? I think you're still on mute.
I am off of mute and I am pulling up my screen. My apologies. Maybe it's that storm that's going on outside.
We know after a year of doing these Zoom hearings that despite as much as experts as we think we are in this, things happen. And so, yep, just bear with us.
Do you see me now?
We can see and hear you.
Okay, thank you, Judge Clark Edwards. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, I'm Carolyn Mulligan. I'm the Domestic Violence Coordinator at the Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Center, also called DVCC. We are part of the University of Maryland Capital Region Health, and I am located at Prince George's Hospital Center, but only for another 2 days. We will close our hospital here in Cheverly and reopen on the same day on Saturday, June 12th in Largo. The new hospital will be called University of Maryland Capital Region Medical Center, and it will be seamless. There will be no stop-in services, and we can meet you there. We're also located at the Family Justice Center in Upper Marlboro. So here, I wanted to let you know that during COVID, of course, our hospitals were very busy, but Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Center never stopped. Our services were continuous also. And here's a list of some of our services. We have a 24-hour crisis response team, and that's for all of our hospitals at the Largo location, at Laurel, at Bowie, all of our outpatient centers, plus for our community. We perform forensic medical exams. That would be sexual abuse, sexual assault, rape, strangulation exams. We also offer counseling, that is in-person and telemental health services, victim advocacy services, both the counseling and victim advocacy in English and Spanish, and advocacy services that could be safety planning, medical or court accompaniment. We provide linkages for housing programs. We offer financial empowerment groups right now. And throughout the year, we also provide education, training, awareness events. We are 24/7 and all of our services are free and confidential. So because prevalence is so high, I wanted to just take a minute to share some statistics with you. And nationally, 1 in 5 women and 1 in 33 men report being raped, but even statistics will say 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually violated before reaching age 18. And this is, you have to keep in mind too, this is the most underreported crime out there. The majority of women being raped report being raped by an intimate partner at about 51%, and about 41% by an acquaintance. That leaves really only about 8% that are raped by a stranger. And I think that's a myth that people still believe that most rapes happen by a stranger. In fact, it's quite the opposite. And with sexual abuse and sexual assault, I think it's important to note that there are traumatic and significant effects in one's life. Here in Prince George's County in 2020, our sexual assault center, our sexual assault unit with Prince George's County Police investigated 177 reports of rape. And that here at DVCC, we perform approximately 150 sexual assault exams each year. So same goes for intimate partner violence. The numbers are staggering, and nationally, statistics will tell you about 1 in 3 women will report intimate partner violence, but 1 in 4 women and 1 in 4 men will report severe physical violence. 1 in 6 women and 1 in 17 men will report being stalked. Again, this is something that is extremely underreported. A lot of people don't report and get services for that. This is a crime that also affects children. 1 in 4 children are exposed to intimate partner violence. The presence of guns during an IPV situation increases the risk of homicide by 500%. And with strangulation, it's a huge indicator of future homicide. In fact, it increases risk by 700, 800%. Again, domestic violence has traumatic and significant effects on one's life. Here in Prince George's County in the year 2020, we had 12 domestic violence related deaths, and that represents 22% of all domestic violence deaths for the whole state. You know, and we've heard a lot about great services in the courts and with the police, and a lot of times victims are not reaching out to get those type of services. In fact, there is a very well-known study by Jacqueline Campbell at Hopkins, where she looked at over 2,000 women who were killed by their intimate partner, and she found that only 4% of them had ever tried to seek out any traditional domestic violence services. That means 96% of the women in the study had never tried to reach out and get protective orders, reach out to the police or go into shelter. The same study found that half of those women had been in the emergency room in the 1 year prior to their death. So that's why having our program in the hospital is so significant. This might be where we could reach somebody and provide some help. So there are consequences to sexual and domestic violence and other similar traumas. There's a cost consequence, of course. I mean, it's very costly. The medical cost can range up to 80% of the cost. But more important to that is the impact on each of the victims. There's immediate outcomes that could be injuries or unfortunately death. And with injuries, a lot of people, I think of injuries as physical injuries. I call it the 3 Bs, the black eye, the broken nose, the busted lip, but it goes way beyond that. We've heard of other types of domestic violence earlier. There's long-term chronic outcomes that could also result from domestic violence. It could affect relationships with families, friends, coworkers. That could be lifelong, affect somebody's well-being. Somebody might adapt high-risk behaviors like smoking or drugs or alcohol or high-risk sexual behavior. It definitely affects somebody's mental health with considering depression, anxiety, suicide attempts, PTSD, and it definitely affects somebody's physical health also. Trauma affects many of the systems in our bodies, including hearts, lungs, GI systems, nervous systems, reproductive systems, sexually transmitted disease, pregnancies. Those all could be the results of abuse. It also could result in increased healthcare visits and people not taking care of other chronic health conditions. So here's what you can do. Promote healthy, respectful, nonviolent relationships between couples, in families, with acquaintances, even with strangers. Create protective and positive environments in schools and neighborhoods and workplaces, strengthen families, provide emotional support. People are going through rough times, especially during these days, and it might be finding ways to provide financial support. Engage the community, that's through faith groups, men's groups, community organizations, bystanders. There's so many different ways to engage the community. Support survivors, believe them, support them. Make sure you provide trauma-informed services that are always available to them. Take care of yourselves. There's a saying, take care of people who take care of people. And that's so true. We have to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves so we can take care of others. So I'll leave you with, you can heal, we can help. Here's our new phone number and how you're able to reach me. And I'll be available at the end too for any questions that come up. Thank you.
Thank you again, Carolyn. Again, we're just excited for the opening of the new hospital and to know that the same resources that were provided at Prince George's County Hospital will remain intact at the new hospital. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to now move into our legal assistance providers. And first we'll hear from our House of Ruth, and presenting on behalf of House Ruth is Noriel Weems. Noriel?
Good afternoon. I'm one of the attorneys here at the House of Ruth, Maryland, in the Prince George's County office. Here at the House of Ruth, we offer a wide variety of services. We have a 24-hour hotline, as well as we do have a chat icon that's located on our website. We also offer an 84-bed shelter that consists of transitional housing and rapid rehousing for victims. We also have legal clinics. We also offer counseling for victims as well as their children and families. We have service coordination. We also have an abuse intervention program, a training institute, and we have over 13 locations throughout Maryland. Specifically, we have locations in Baltimore, Montgomery County, and here in Prince George's County. In Baltimore is where our main office is located, as well as our shelter, our community engagement center, our Highlandton office, and in Baltimore District Courthouse is where one of our legal clinics is located, as well as in the Catonsville Courthouse, we have another legal clinic office. In Montgomery County and the Rockville and Silver Spring courthouses, we have legal clinic offices, and in the Montgomery County Family Justice Center out there, we have another legal clinic office. Here in the Prince George's County area, in the Hyattsville Courthouse, in the Upper Marlboro Courthouse, we have legal clinic offices, and we have an office in the Family Justice Center, and we also have counseling in our Brentwood area. When it comes to legal resources, we have attorneys who provide free legal representation and final protective orders, as well as final peace order cases. We also represent clients in modifications, civil contempts, extensions, shielding hearings, as well as de novo appeal cases. We also have a few attorneys that do handle divorce and/or custody cases. Our attorneys also assist clients in filling out paperwork related for protective order and peace order cases. Our attorneys safety plan with clients, as well as we give out legal advices. In addition to attorneys, we also have legal advocates. Our legal advocates are a critical link between victims and services. They set the tone for client-focused services. They gather all information that's pertinent to clients' cases and situations. They do this through legal intakes. They also help the clients identify and preserve evidence. They safety plan with victims. They're a gatekeeper to other resources, and they also accompany clients to other court proceedings as well. As of now, attorneys are back in both our Upper Marlboro and Hyattsville courthouse locations, and we can be contacted at the numbers provided, as well as our offices are at the numbers in the room numbers that are listed on the information. Thank you.
Thank you, Noriel. And next we'll be hearing from Community Legal Services, and presenting on their behalf is Jessica Kinkoson.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Judge Clark Edwards and Judge Dornsonville for including community legal services this afternoon in this informative program. My name is Jessica Kinkosa, and I'm the Executive Director of Community Legal Services, and I'm presenting on behalf of our domestic violence staff attorney who unfortunately was unable to be here. First, community legal services, hold on. Once we get that presentation ready, give me one moment. So Community Legal Services mission is to educate, represent, and empower low-income members of the Prince George's County community regarding civil legal matters. Community Legal Services provides domestic violence assistance and it provides survivors with assistance in protective orders, peace orders, modifications, and contempt hearings. Community Legal Services assists domestic violence survivors with brief legal advice. At this point, we're still receiving phone calls. We're not in person yet at the Family Justice Center, which is where we do provide assistance. But if you call our number, we are providing legal advice remotely. We do assist with completing petitions for protection, petitions for modification, and contempt. We do provide representation at final hearings, modification, and contempt hearings. The representation is provided by either one of our staff attorneys or one of our pro bono volunteer attorneys that has been trained to understand the needs of domestic violence survivors. We also provide, on a limited basis, we provide assistance to representation at temporary hearings for clients who are unable to navigate the process independently. These are our current locations. As I stated, because of COVID and social distancing, our office is limited to the staff. But if you call, there is an opportunity to receive an appointment to meet with an attorney in person. We are also at the Family Law Clinic for the self-represented in the Upper Marlboro Courthouse, and that is room M2435 in the Marbury Wing. And we do assist at the Family Justice Center. So Community Legal Services also provides legal advice and representation to survivors of domestic violence on related matters, including family law, landlord-tenant, bankruptcy and foreclosure, and estate planning. Those are some of the services we provide to our general clients. Some of the family law cases we handle are divorce, custody and child support, guardianship of minors and disabled adults. We also assist with standby guardianship for folks that need to prepare themselves for the unlikely event that they may be deported or need some additional protections. Community Legal Services also provides a same-day representation program at the Hyattsville Courthouse, where we provide tenants with representation in failure to pay rent cases. We also provide representation on wrongful detainer actions and tenant holding over, as well as some limited breach of lease actions. For our bankruptcy and foreclosure programs, Community Legal Services assists with legal representation in Chapter 7 cases. Unfortunately, we do not handle Chapter 13 cases, but we will provide referrals to other legal services providers that may be able to handle Chapter 13 bankruptcies. We do assist with loan modifications, foreclosure mediations, and foreclosure negotiations, as well as foreclosure defense and post-foreclosure work, such as a surplus hearing if your home has been sold in a foreclosure auction and there is money left in the account. We also provide homeowner eviction proceedings. Sometimes the foreclosure or purchaser will file a wrongful detainer action or possession action against the homeowner for eviction. We provide some limited services, especially right now due to COVID. We're not having any in-person wills clinics. I'm hopeful that that should change pretty soon, but we will provide some limited advice and possible wills for folks with limited resources, powers of attorney, and advanced medical directive information. So I'm going to go a little bit on what are some of the protections for survivors of violence in housing and landlord-tenant cases. Survivors of violence domestic violence can have an early termination of their residential lease if they are listed as a tenant on the residential lease. They can also request to change the locks on the premises. And it may also have a defense to an action for possession of property if they're considered an occupant in the property and not necessarily a tenant. For the early termination of the residential lease by a survivor what you need to do is provide a written 30-day notice to vacate the leased premise. The tenant would only be responsible for the rent for that 30-day period. It terminates any future liability the tenant would have on that lease. The tenant needs to provide a copy of the written notice to the landlord, needs to vacate the premise, and needs to provide a copy of the final protective order to the landlord. The domestic violence survivor may also request the landlord to change the locks on the premises upon a written request to change the locks and with a copy of the final protective order. If the landlord does not change the locks by the next business day after a written notice is requested, the tenant may actually change the locks with a certified locksmith without necessarily the permission of the landlord. In an action for possession of property against a survivor of violence, tenants, and this is specifically in a breach of lease action, is deemed to have raised a rebuttable presumption that the alleged breach does not warrant an eviction. Breach of lease cases have a three-prong, and this assists a survivor of violence to hopefully avoid an eviction based on the abuse. The tenant must also provide a copy of the final protective order in that action. And these are the ways in which you can reach us at Community Legal Services. We have an online intake on our website where you can submit an intake 24 hours a day. We do have a hotline, the 240-391-6370, which is answered from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And we also have an email, which is reviewed pretty much hourly. And we send the information to our intake or staff attorney to reach out to survivors as quickly as they can. And thank you. If anybody has any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you so much, Jessica. All right, and next we'll be moving into our victim service providers. And first, within that discipline, we'll be hearing from our Family Justice Center Executive Director, Dr. Denise McCain.
Good afternoon, everyone. Judge Clark Edwards, Judge Dorsonville, and colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon and to be a part of this informative conversation. Again, my name is Denise McCain. I am the director of the Prince George's County Family Justice Center, and we're located at 14757 Main Street in Upper Marlboro, directly behind the courthouse from the commissioner's entrance. You know, you've heard a lot of information about resources and services thus far, but as you can imagine, someone who's been victimized, traumatized, trying to navigate all of the multiple systems and processes can be very daunting. And for that reason, supportive services is extremely important, particularly for those who are not familiar with the process. We know that it can be again, even re-traumatizing, particularly if you have to repeat the same story over and over again. So we know that survivors need help along the way. And realistically, that's what the Family Justice Center is about, why it was established, and what we do. The Family Justice Center, our goal is really to streamline that process, to make it more seamless and efficient, serving victims in a more holistic, client-centered manner. We were established in 2016, and we are an initiative of the Circuit Court. And since it is a very efficient and coordinated community response, because we are what we know is a nationally organized or certified multi-agency intervention collaborative. We have a multidisciplinary team of professionals that are all there working together under one roof to provide services to survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, as well as elder abuse. And again, this was designed to provide immediate short-term and long-term solutions through this one-stop shop process. The Department of Justice has identified the Family Justice Center model as a best practice, and we are truly a state-of-the-art facility. We provide services in a very safe and confidential manner. Our mission largely at the Family Justice Center is really just to make sure that we are delivering services to clients in a very comprehensive, client-centered manner, but of course it's survivor-driven. We don't tell survivors what to do, they lead us. We give them options, we give them education, information about resources, and they drive the train. Our goal, again, is basically to help people find hope in their lives. We operate from a philosophy that hope starts here because we know that hope is the pathway to healing. We know that survivors, once they have what they need, they're in a position to be empowered and to lead with a personal belief that tomorrow will be better and brighter than today. How do we do this? So we are, again, as you've heard, most of the organizations, if not all that you've heard from thus far, are partners in the Family Justice Center. We are a public-private partnership that includes agencies from both the government and nonprofit community-based organizations. As you can see, we have the state's attorney's office, the police department, the sheriff's office, the Department of Social Services, Department of Family Services, as well as the county's health department. In addition to that, there are 16 nonprofit organizations that are there. Most have very special disciplines, either working with domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, or elder abuse, as well as general crime victims. Of note, we have 6 law firms that are in the Family Justice Center. And I point that out because the overwhelming majority of clients that come in are seeking either legal services or therapeutic counseling services. With regard to services, again, as you can see, very comprehensive. Our services fall into 3 categories: criminal civil justice, advocacy, or supportive services. Again, most of the agencies that you've heard from fall within these categories. And of note, we also have transportation, and that has been a tremendous asset and resource for survivors that have had difficulty getting to court or even coming to the Family Justice Center to take advantage of many of the resources and services that are available to them. We also have a few specialty programs. We have a support group, which is an aftercare program. It's led or run, not run, it's led by survivors. Again, the goal is to help them to learn about domestic violence, the dynamics, to be aware of the signs, to help them continue to move forward and not end up in abusive relationships again. Of note, 2 of the partnering organizations, the Office of the Sheriff, as well as the hospital, have clinical social workers who facilitate these support groups. We also have a teen empowerment program. It's really more of an educational, preventative resource. We work with teens in middle and high school. Again, the goal is to help prevent domestic violence by starting young, early with teen dating violence, helping them to understand healthy and unhealthy relationships, discussing self-esteem, as well as identifying those warning signs of teen dating violence. And then lastly, we have an economic justice program. We have an attorney from Maryland Legal Aid that provides legal assistance for non-family law matters, largely around issues such as consumer debt, bankruptcy, housing, employment law, things that would really impact a survivor's life and ability to move forward without getting those legal issues resolved. And these are things that typically have come about as a result of involvement or relationships with an abusive partner. As you can imagine, this is extremely beneficial for clients. It's more efficient. As I said, someone would potentially have to go to 3, 4, 5 different places to get help. With those partners in the Family Justice Center, we're able to make those services available to them in one location. The coordination of services helps to facilitate the process. It moves things along much quicker. Survivors have access to information and resources, and their issues are resolved in a much more timely manner. Enhanced safety is important. We know that survivors oftentimes choose not to go through the process because they're fearful. They don't know where to go and they need help trying to navigate the system. So we do believe that this helps to keep them safe because they are taking action at an earlier phase with support. And again, it's much more holistic. It's much more client-centered. We know that. So what do you need to know? Simply this. Eligibility, all of our services are free of charge. The only criteria is that you be a victim of domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, or elder abuse. You have to either live in Prince George's County or the incident has to have occurred in Prince George's County to be eligible. Currently, we are still working on a hybrid schedule, which means we have walk-ins, no appointments are needed, as well as virtual intakes. Our hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5 o'clock. We are currently not open on Thursdays late, but by June 30th, we will go back to a full operation, all walk-in with all extended hours. And that would conclude my presentation. Thank you again. We do have a website that provides a lot more information about resources and services. So please visit the website to get more information. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you. Thank you.
Dr. McCain, can you give that website? Because we don't see that. If
Oh, okay. It's pgcfamilyjusticecenter.org. That's pgcfamilyjusticecenter.org.
Perfect. All right, thank you, Dr. McCain.
Thank you.
All right, and now we will hear from CCSI, and presenting on behalf of our of CCSI is Gabrielle Parson. All right.
Yes, hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Gabrielle Parson. I'm the Victim Services Coordinator here at Community Crisis Services, located in Prince George's County. Let me see. Okay, and so what we do here in Prince George's County, we just provide supportive services for those who are in a crisis, using our hotline services, our shelter programs, and through our information and referral services. And so we do provide assistance for those in a variety of a crisis. But for today, I'm going to go over the victims, our victim services. And so we do operate the 24-hour domestic violence hotline here in Prince George's County, where victims can get connected to services such as the Safe House, to other services here who we oftentimes directly refer to our partners here in Prince George's County. And last year we did begin our chat line, which is located on our website. You would just go to ccsimd.org. There is an icon on the right side, and we started the chat line last year. After the pandemic, we began to see our calls decrease. And so we know that there were still victims out there who needed help. So in order to make our services more accessible to those victims who were stuck at home with their abusers, we wanted to start a chat line. So again, this chat line is on our website. It's between the hours of 8 a.m. and 12 a.m. daily. So if there's any victim out there who needs assistance, who are not able to access our hotline, they can go onto our website. We operate the Safe Passages Emergency Shelter here in Prince George's County, accepting all victims of intimate partner violence. That does include males. We do get that question often. So we do assist male victims, and these are all victims of intimate partner violence. We typically get the question, how long are victims able to stay in the safe house? There is no time frame, no set time frame for victims to stay in the safe house. Some victims only need a week or two just to get themselves together until their protective order is final. But there are other victims who need more assistance. So we don't have a set time frame. We allow victims to stay as long as they need to get themselves together and until they're safe. We started our Survivors Initiative program last year, where we provide assistance to victims in the community. This did start off as our aftercare program for victims who were leaving the safe house. As you know, when victims are in the safe house, they have support, they have case managers, and they have a therapist there on site to provide that support and assistance. And so we know that once they are transitioning out of the safe house, sometimes it's hard for them to maintain after because they don't have that same support. So we wanted to make sure that we are providing the same support once they transition out. And so we also wanted to provide these services to other victims who are referred to us by our other partners. And sometimes these victims are not, they don't need to go into the safe house. They may have somewhere to stay. They may have support from family members and friends, or some of them just don't want to leave their home. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to provide them the same supportive services. So we started our Survivors Initiative program for victims who are out in the community. So they are receiving follow-up services where we have our survivor specialists reach out to them. However much the victim or the survivor decides, it could be daily, it could be weekly, it could be monthly. They connect them to legal services, financial assistance, and this may be financial assistance. Maybe they've fallen behind on their rent, or maybe they need assistance with relocating. And then we have furniture assistance. Some victims, they're starting over. So sometimes, they need assistance with getting furniture. Like I said, legal services, counseling. And then we do also offer services for abusers. So we have our abuser intervention program. And some additional supportive services that we offer. Again, as I stated, community crisis services, we provide services for those who are in a crisis, and it's not just for victims, but we also operate the local 211 and Maryland crisis hotline. So if someone needs to get connected to us because they're having a mental health crisis or any other crisis, they can just they can just call into 211. And then we also operate the homeless hotline here in Prince George's County, which is also 24 hours. So anyone that's interested in looking for shelter or just trying to find out some information, they can just call this number that's on the screen. And they are connected to all shelters here in Prince George's County. And so if you have any questions, I'm gonna watch the chat. But you can also reach out to myself by email, or you can reach out to our survivor specialist, Maya Brown. And so I'm going to leave this up for a while. And I am watching the chat. And so if you all have any questions, just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabrielle.
Uh-huh.
All right, and now we will hear from Jackie Roan with our Department of Family Services. And one moment while I cue that up.
I will be providing an overview of the services that the Prince George's County Department of Family Services, Domestic Violence and Human Trafficking Division.
Can everyone hear? Did it stop?
Just went out. Yeah, the sound just went out. It looks like it stopped as well.
Okay, hold on.
The division was created under the Baker administration and is supported by our county executive, Angela Also Brooks, to prevent and respond to domestic violence and human trafficking in Prince George's County. The division goals are to coordinate services and assist with programming, facilitate partnerships in collaboration with government, our nonprofits, businesses, and community organizations, to develop programs, services, and trainings to meet the unique needs in our community, to advocate and support victims and survivors, and to collaborate with our service providers and governmental departments through innovative programming and trainings. This slide demonstrates some of the programming and initiatives the division have created and are responsible for. The Engaging Men and Boys Initiative, Community Engagement, our Survivor Resiliency Fund, Public Relations, Human Trafficking Awareness, and our Youth Dating Violence programs. community engagement, education, and outreach. These are just a few examples of some of the flyers that have been created to engage the community. Our bystander community trainings, interfaith for religious and clergy symposiums, service provider symposium and trainings, and the newest are survivor development and empowerment workshops. Historically, when the subject of domestic violence is discussed, it is discussed in a tone where men are not a part of the conversation. In Prince George's County, the men and boys very much want to be a part of the dialogue and a part of the solution. The division has created several initiatives to work in partnership with men and boys to create healthy relationships and opportunities for them to gather in dialogue and educate one another in supportive manners. The Momentum Conference is held annually, as well as the Father's Day Pledge. The Men's Challenge Initiative is held throughout the year in much smaller sessions where men dialogue on specific titles or subjects to create healthy masculinity. Our youth dating violence program is done through a curriculum called Safe Dates. Safe Dates curriculum is an evidence-based program certified by the CDC to work with youth ages middle school and older to help them understand the difference between caring and supportive relationships versus controlling and abusive relationships. You will see on the slide that the curriculum has 10 sessions. The Domestic Violence and Human Trafficking Division is a partner to the Prince George's County Human Trafficking Task Force.
Did it stop one? Uh-oh. Did it stop one?
There's no more sound.
Here are some examples of our community outreach and education specific to human trafficking done in partnership with the task force. Community public relations campaigns. This slide demonstrates some of the outreach and education that we've done through way of campaigns. Our labor trafficking billboards and bus shelters, a domestic violence webinar series that was put together and is available on YouTube. Our domestic violence memes, which are used largely by our faith-based community, and then our English and Spanish printed resource guides. They are also available electronically from the department's website. The division has established a Survivor Resiliency Fund. The Resiliency Fund can be used and accessed through the division to support survivors of domestic violence, human trafficking, and sexual assault to overcoming some of the challenges and barriers they may have to leading their family into stabilization. The Resiliency Fund has been used to purchase locks and replace them when needed, windows and other damages that may have occurred, first month's rent and security deposit and relocation assistance, and sometimes furniture. The overall ideal is that this fund be used in a flexible manner to support and stabilize families. We would like you to stay connected. We have provided a short list of some of the domestic violence partners in our community and their phone numbers, some of which you will hear from today. Thank you so much for attending the open house this afternoon. Here is the division contact information. Feel free to reach out to us if you or if you know of someone that needs some support or assistance.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much to Jackie Roan for putting that together. Jackie is on here with the presentation today. So again, if you have any questions for her, she's available to answer any of those questions. Okay. Jackie, anything? Or we're good? We're good. All right. Okay, and next we're going to hear from a presentation from community advocacy, community advocates for family and youth, Ellen Wallace, who was having some difficulty logging on, but we do have her presentation. All right. You got to share the sound.
My apologies.
So up in that window, Judge Dorsonville, the little, where you get the little dot, dot, dot.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Pull it down, it should give you the option to share sound.
I see it now. All right.
My name is Ellen Wallace, and I'm a domestic violence case manager with CAFI, Community Advocates for Family and Youth. Our advocates are certified and also trauma-informed, offering case management, court accompaniment, assistance with safety planning, resource access and referrals for victims, along with secondary victims. All of our CAFI assistance is available in both English and Spanish, and we're available 24 hours a day through our helpline number, which is 301-882-2002. Our support services include court education sessions, support groups, individual counseling, as well as family therapy sessions. Our CAFI Counseling and Family Center is also staffed by trauma-informed therapists offering a variety of modalities such as art, music, play, and sand tray therapy. Additionally, CAFI's pro bono legal clinic is able to offer assistance for landlord issues, child support, custody disputes, and protective orders. We're also able to provide for the safe transfer of children between parents and supervised visitations through our Counseling and Family Center in a safe environment with a monitor. A new addition to our services is the Strengthening Families program, an evidence-based program that runs for 10 weeks and is designed to strengthen family bonding, communication, and relationship skills. The program emphasizes the importance of coming together as a family for a meal, which also is provided by CAFI during each session. CAFI's mission is to embrace, empower, and educate those impacted by crime and trauma. We strive to make every person stronger now. Our contact again is 301-882-2002 through our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week number.
Okay, wonderful. We appreciate Ellen for presenting today. And next we'll hear from Ellie Jones with the Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center. I know Ellie was having some technical difficulties, so hopefully we can get her. She may need to, if you're calling from your phone, Ellie, you might need to hit *6 to unmute. Mr. Robertson, you're on mute also.
Now, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, so Ellie and I are doing a joint presentation. And I'll go ahead and get started. Hopefully I'll get started effectively. Let's see. I'll try to represent well, as you judges have done a wonderful job showing your screen and technical skills. Let's see if I can match it. All right. All right, so this is, so I'm going to do a quick presentation. I think you can see part of my screen, although I can't get it just right. And I'm Alonzo Robertson. I'll go ahead and get started. Can you see that screen? As I'll fix it up as I'm talking. Okay. I'm Alonzo Robertson with the Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center. And I'm one of the attorneys. We have, and let's see if I'm sorry, guys.
If you go under slideshow and then hit
it. I can try to get that out of this one. There it goes. Okay. Click and there it is. Okay. I think I should be able to do mouse after. It's how to progress the slide from one to the other is where I'm having a trouble. There it goes. Okay. Generally, okay, I'll give the general overview of the Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center. We used to be called the Stephanie Roper Committee and Foundation, and our main purpose was to assist a family, the Stephanie Roper family, whose child had been killed in Prince George's County, and in the 1980s, their ability to understand and to even participate in the legal process was challenged by both sides of the legal, by prosecutors and defense. So they were unable to learn about what was going on in the trial until they were excluded from being able to participate in the trial. So the effort became a major effort for the state to establish victims' rights in the state of Maryland, and it has spread across the rest of the United States. In the 1990s, we were successful in getting an amendment to the Maryland Constitution, which we identify as Article 47, which states that victims shall be treated with dignity, respect, and sensitivity. What does that mean? For our organization, it means that we've established attorneys. We have attorneys, we have victims advocates, one of which you will hear from this afternoon, Ellie Jones. We have counseling services. Our counselors are by contract, so sometimes they are available and sometimes we don't have them under contract, but we partner with other organizations like the Pro Bono Counseling Project and other counselors to bring in counselors when our victims need additional assistance or that type of assistance. We also do a lot of policy advocacy on general issues. And I don't know if you can see the bottom of that slide, but we work with CIC. We have a CICB, or Criminal Injuries Compensation Board advocate. And that is an individual who will, as an attorney, who will actually represent a victim who has requested funds from the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board. And if they come to us early, we can assist them in making the application. But a number of organizations that we work with and that we partner with, including the Prince George's Justice Center and some of the other organizations that are on this call, will assist an individual with applying to the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board. What we do as a unique element is that if they are denied, we have an advocate that will go ahead and appeal the proceeding for them. What I'd like to point out for everyone, though, is that there's a 15-day turnaround time. So you need to make sure that if your victim contacts you and says that they've been denied, that you get in contact with us quickly so that we can not miss the deadlines for appealing. All right. So what do we do? I said we have lawyers, we have advocates. Our goal is to make certain that the victim's rights are protected while they're in court. So I'm gonna back up a little bit because some of the other organizations talked about their representation in civil matters. We don't do any civil matters. We only represent individuals of victims of crime. We don't do any family matters, family law matters for the same reason. So what we will do is when we have a victim who also has other issues, let's say the victim is a victim of sexual assault in a marital arrangement, we may get them in contact with another organization that does sexual assault. We will get them in contact with someone who will help them with finding housing and the like, so that we really do highlight the resource aspect of our name, so that we recognize that we can't be everything to everyone, but we can help you get into and connect up with the right organization. I really do appreciate some of the other organizations that are here, particularly Ms. McCain's organization, where we will go and we have a representative that sits in their office, because what they do is they bring a lot of resources together so that a victim is not running from place to place in order to try to get the resources that they need. Our goal as Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center is really to focus on helping them find those resources, bringing the connections together, but also showing up in court with them and representing them before the with the state's attorneys, in this case Prince George's County, but we actually represent the entire state, victims from across the state. So I'm in Anne Arundel today. I'm Southern Maryland. We have 13 attorneys, so they're in various jurisdictions throughout the state of Maryland. We talk to state's attorneys to remind them of notice, making sure they give the victim notice of the court proceeding, and help them understand the significance of saying at the last minute, oh, this case is going to be postponed. And for the lawyers in the group, we understand that cases are going to be postponed and that it may be pushed to another day. But for victims, it becomes re-traumatizing for them to get up that morning, make their way to court, only to find out that it was postponed Friday and no one decided to let them know what was going on. So we try to remind our state's attorneys, we remind our police officers about the rights that a victim has and how they play in the operations of the legal process. I could go through a number of the examples. I think I have an example for each of the privacy and protection and notice, presentation, right to be heard. But what I want to spend time on is, as an organization, one of my jobs, as my role in the organization, is to provide training to our state's attorneys, training to our police officers, and training to our nonprofit organizations about the existence of these rights and how they are impacting the well-being of our victims. We always talk about re-traumatization and re-victimization of our victims, but we sometimes don't recognize how that occurs. And so that is one of the main goals of our organization. Identify what they are and help our operators, our victims organizations, recognize how they can prevent victimization of victims. Let me just slide through this quickly. I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to, unless there are questions about a particular right that a victim has. If someone wants to raise a question about that, I will just point out what they are and then move over to allow Ellie an opportunity to talk about victim services that she addresses. I will say this slide I put together in the context of COVID. COVID had a major impact on victims' rights, not only because court cases were postponed, but even when they were allowed, some of the hearings were by video. Well, that's great, but if you don't have a cell phone that is a smartphone, or you don't have access to a computer, those rights still get lost to you. So those are elements that we try to keep in contact and keep reminding our leaders about. And when I consider leaders, I'm thinking those of us who are on this call who are the experts in providing these services, just remembering that the people that we're dealing with may not have the same resources as we do. Excuse me. All right. support during trial. Today, I was at a multiple murder trial, and the family and representing the families. One of the issues that came up was the location, the address of the victim and the victim's family. They still lived in the area. There was a concern about retaliation, and we were able to talk to the state's attorney to remind them that while we have protected the address of the victim's representative, while you're doing the proceeding, that question is going to come up because it was relevant to the case. And they were able to address it, but also to talk to the judge and the defense counsel so that it wouldn't be highlighted as a major element of the prosecution or the discussion. So it's things of that nature. Restitution, I will mention this, is a major aspect. I always think that it's one of the areas that a victim finally gets an opportunity to get something back. They may not get everything that they want, and particularly if it's a homicide, they're never going to get what they really want. But restitution is available to victims as long as we help them from the beginning, the first moment that we get them, to remind them to keep track of their bills, keep track of their expenses that come directly from the crime. And if they don't come to me or Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center, but they've gone to one of our other partners before they've gotten to the police and the state's attorney, it's incumbent upon you to know that you want to help them by letting them know. Keep track of the days off you've taken from work. Keep track of the bills that you've incurred so that we can, in the end, if there is a conviction, we can ask for restitution. How can you help? We can say, know the laws related to victims and victims' rights, treat victims with dignity, respect, and sensitivity, and reach out to us if you have any concerns. At this point, I'm gonna say, Ellie, are you available?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. I'm going to stop sharing. New share, pause
You
share.
can leave it up there. I don't have anything to put up there. You can leave it there.
Okay, I'll leave it.
So I'm not going to show you all my face because I'm in the office and I've been in court and my desk is looking real crazy right now. But I am here to tell you that as advocates, we do work with the victims. They will call into our office and we'll find out what's going on. We'll do a needs assessment, and then we will try to get them the resources that they need. We do help them with Criminal Injuries Compensation Board. We are that liaison between the victim and criminal injuries, trying to make sure that they have all the documents they need so that they can hopefully get reimbursed for funds. I don't know I'm sure most of the people on here know about Criminal Injuries Compensation Board, where people can be compensated for funeral, medical, lost wages, loss of support, and counseling, only if that person did not, they did not do anything to cause their own injury and or death. So we work with them with that. I do know, I heard Alonzo touch on if they are denied, they do have 15 days to appeal it. We do have an attorney that can help them with the appeal. All of our services are free. We also help with, you have some victims who may have moved. So they may want to be in the address confidentiality program so that their addresses are not known to the public and or the respondent. So we will help them with applications for the Safe at Home program. I myself am certified to do the one for Maryland and for DC, so we can help them that way. We try to help them with resources, money. Well, we don't have money, but we try to send them to a program that does have money that can help them. Some of them, they just don't want their information put into the system, say like their address, things like that. So there is a form called the Demand for Rights and Notification form. So we will have them fill that out and they will use our address, any mailing documents that they may need or that the courts are sending out. And it's only for court purposes. where we will be that liaison. The courts will send us the information, and then we will turn around and send it to them. We do help with shielding. Our attorneys will help with shielding. We do help with victim impact statements. We give them information on how to write them, give them samples. We also help them with Vine, registering for Vine. And we also go with the families for any type of parole hearings. As long as they call us ahead of time, we have attorneys that will work with them and will go with them to the parole hearings. We will also, Alonzo touched a little bit about restitution. Sometimes restitution is not asked for at the hearing. They have 30 days to request it after their hearing. So we have attorneys that can also do that on behalf of the victim. So we do kind of like a whole lot of stuff here. If you have questions, please give us a call. The advocates do also go to court with victims as a court accompaniment, to be there for them, to be there for them. Because sometimes they don't have anybody. So if you have any questions, give us a call. Our main number is 301-952-0063. And you can call that number and you can be put in touch with an advocate at that time that can help you. And if you have any questions, you can also call me directly. My number is 240-335-4029. And that's it. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, both Alonzo and Ellie. They have included in the chat the number, the main number that Ellie referred to, the 301-952-0063 again. And I'll talk a little bit more about this at the end, but this presentation will be made available. So if you haven't been able to get all the information all at once, because it is a lot of information, rest assured that we will make this available to you at some point later. All right, last in our victim service providers, we will hear from Therese Harrigan with our family support services. Is Therese still on? She is.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, okay. Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Therese Harrigan, and I'm a domestic violence clinician with the Prince George's County Circuit Court Family Support Services Office, Domestic Violence Unit. The Domestic Violence Unit has 2 domestic violence clinicians. Family Support Services receives court-ordered referrals from the district court and the circuit court. Referrals to this office are typically received after a final protective order or peace order is granted, and as part of the relief granted to the petitioner, counseling is ordered for the petitioner, the respondent, or the children, or in criminal matters requiring a defendant to receive counseling. Family Support Services conducts psychosocial assessments and referrals to appropriate counseling services in the community, including domestic violence abuser intervention programs or non-domestic violence anger management programs, or domestic violence victim counseling services, substance abuse treatment programs, parent education programs, psychiatric or psychological therapeutic services, or other services as needed. This office monitors counseling compliance and provides status reports to the referring judge. Family Support Services also provides the orientations for the Children's Rights Council, CRC Kids, where the court has ordered supervised visitation or monitored transfer services. Those services have, CRC Kids has a center in Hyattsville as well as Brandywine. And this office, Family Support Services, is located in the Upper Marlboro Courthouse at 14735 Main Street, room M0423, Upper Marlboro, Maryland. The main number is 301-952-3213, and the office is open Monday through Friday between the hours of 8 and 4:30. Currently, with the COVID-19 restrictions, appointments are by telephone. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Therese. Can everyone hear me? All right, thank you very much, Therese. And so, because typically, really, family support services is a service provided through the courts. We didn't include this through the courts because family support services really does work directly with victims and referring them to many of the programs that Therese spoke about. So that's why we thought it might be more appropriate to include them with the victim service providers. Lastly, we are going to hear from our faith-based community, and with us today we have Reverend Linda Thomas, who is with First Baptist Church of Glenarden, is the director of their domestic violence ministry. We understand that throughout this county, there are a number of various denominations throughout the county. There are a number of other churches, other faith-based communities that provide services, many of them whom we work with within the county. And so I want to make everyone aware that though we work with First Baptist Church of Glenarden, we are also open and we've worked with other organizations throughout the county. And again, there are many other organizations that provide services to you as well. So if that's something you're interested in, please shoot us a question or a note and we'll be happy to provide some additional information about that. But right now we will hear from Reverend Linda Thomas.
Hi, I'm Reverend Linda Thomas, Director for the First Baptist Church of Glenarden's Domestic Violence Ministry. I am so excited to be a part of this open house. We know that the faith-based community plays a very unique and pivotal role in the effective, and I want to emphasize effective response to domestic violence within their congregations and the community. And this is because survivors will turn to their faith-based community before or in lieu of a community program. But as we work together to partnership with the county, with the programs and this ministry, we can empower survivors. The purpose of this ministry is to educate, empower, and provide services for domestic violence survivors, for men, women, and children that find their lives shattered by domestic abuse. 3 components to our ministry. One is we educate the congregation, we engage the community, and we empower the survivor. We have a monthly support group that is a safe place where survivors can come and share what's happening in their lives. And we take an oath of confidentiality, and so they're there and they feel safe, and it's just a good place to be. We empower the survivor. That's what we do, and we do that with our developing dynamic self-worth support groups. Every first Saturday of the month, we gather together and empower survivors. Again, oath of confidentiality, and what's said in there stays in there. Where women, it's a non-judgment zone where women, men can come and share what's happening in their lives. There's a scripture that says the Lord is near to those with a broken heart, and He provides a safe place for a healing place for survivors. So let's hear now from a survivor.
I'm Dolores Holmes, a member of the First Baptist Church of Glenarden, the Domestic Violence Ministry. I came to First Baptist Church of Glenarden during a crisis time in my life. My husband was physically abusive. I just didn't know what to do. I had sought counseling from another pastor from a different church, and he told me as a believer that I should offer it up as suffering. I just could not understand how a loving God would want me to suffer in this way. When I took my vows, to death do us part, did it really mean that I was to die? I came to church on Sunday, many times in tears during the sermon, and one Sunday I was just desperate. I just couldn't make it any further. It took all of the courage in me. I was so ashamed. when I went up to the First Lady and I told her, "Good morning, First Lady. I enjoyed the service, but I believe my husband is trying to kill me." She was so kind, compassionate, not condemning. She immediately connected me with Reverend Linda Thomas, who helped me to empower myself through the Saturday sessions, find a safety plan, tell me that it wasn't my fault. She not only impacted my life, she impacted the life of my family and my generations to come. If it had not been for this ministry and Reverend Linda Thomas, I don't know where I would be.
So we talked about who we are as a ministry. We've talked about some of the things that we do. And now I'm sure you must be asking, so how do we reach you, right? You can reach us at domesticviolence@fbcglenarden.org. Also, so many survivors have come and needing food and clothes. That's what our Shabbat Emergency Empowerment Center does. And while it's by appointment only, when you are in an emergency situation, we make exceptions to that. So we want you to know that we are here for you as a ministry collectively. And we want you to know that we won't stop until we educate the congregations, until we engage the community, until we empower every single survivor. So we want you to know, once again, that we're here for you and we won't stop.
Thank you so much again, Reverend Thomas. Anything you wish to add?
No, thank you, Judge. This has been an incredible session. I want to just thank all the community partners, because without partnership, we couldn't do this alone. And I'm so grateful that on this platform, we have the people that are doing the work day after day after day. It warms my heart to see us come together collectively. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I don't think I could have said it any better. Reverend Thomas, First Baptist Church of Glenarden has been a wonderful partner, along with every single agency and organization we have on here represented today. And again, a number of those who partner with us every day who have not been able to be here today. Some of them faith-based and some of them not, but the purpose today was for you to get some sense that we're trying to touch every base that we can. Any way in which victims are seeking services, are seeking some assistance, we are trying to reach out and really have a collaborative effort any and every way we can to touch all of those paths of entry that would provide services to victims and or survivors and their families. So again, I just want to take a moment to again thank every one of you who've taken time out to attend today. This may not be personal to you, but you may have someone in your family, you may have a friend, you may have a neighbor, you may have a coworker, a colleague that is being impacted by domestic violence. And so the more we can get this information out to our community that can then share that, it helps us to do our jobs a lot easier, and it really helps to impact how we're able to combat domestic violence. And I want to thank again each and every one of our presenters, because we are operating after hours, and many of them are operating after hours beyond this. And so I just want to thank every one of you who've taken time out to be a part of this. Again, this did not just spring up. We've been planning this and trying to pull this together for some time, and to have so many partners on today and presenting and giving such powerful and beneficial information. I'm so thankful for you today. Before I close, I'm just going to turn it over to Judge Dorsonville for any words she'd like to add as well.
I will just reiterate what you have said, Judge Clark Edwards. Truly, this was an amazing event, and I do want to thank all of our partners and panelists tonight, as well as those that couldn't attend. But thank you for compiling this information in a wonderful format. This is going to be a very useful resource and tool that, as I indicated earlier, will live online And hopefully we all will be able to share this with others who could not attend today. So thank you all for your help.
That's right. And as Judge Dorsonville mentioned, we do intend, this has been streaming live on Facebook through Community Legal Services. Again, when I talk about partners, we couldn't have done any of this. All this technical stuff you see here, this is all the work of Jordan from Community Legal Services with the assistance of Jessica Kinkosa. So they have been a tremendous asset in really helping us to make this format available to you all. And so they've been streaming this live on Facebook through their Facebook page as well. We will be providing a link for YouTube where you'll be able to go to YouTube and see this as well. So thank you again, everyone, for attending. And there was a question about, because I want to make sure I got to that. With the shelters, again, we've heard from CCSI, we've heard from House of Ruth, that are able to provide our shelter services. Department of Family Services also provides, and a number of our agencies have spoken today, and that's why I kind of want to wait to the end to address that question after we had an opportunity for many of them to address that. Because there are a number of agencies that are providing shelter services. Where they can't get services here, they also are making referrals. They're able to make referrals to some of our other partnering agencies that may be outside the county even. And so, so we are continuing to do that. Private DV shelters are a little bit harder because that requires some vetting. And so that hasn't been as easy to come by, but certainly some of our partnering agencies in other counties, we've been working with those. There was a question about our Maryland Network Against Domestic Violence. We actually have some partners here, group members who are here, council members who are here on our DVCC that also sit on the board for Maryland Network Against Domestic Violence. One of them I know is Carolyn Mulligan with our hospital, with the Domestic Violence Sexual Assault Center. She's been an integral part, worked very close to with Maryland Network Against Domestic Violence. We've done training with Maryland Network Against Domestic Violence. And so, so yes, there is that collaboration with them as well. And again, Carolyn Mulligan has been a great asset working on that along with the Maryland Healthcare Coalition in keeping that link between us and them and getting useful information to us. So I think that was all the questions that I saw in the chat. Again, I thank you all for attending. And with that, I'm going to close the session. Thank you all so much. If I can have the panelists just remain on. Thanks so much.